Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Flyered Up podcast. I'm your host, Amadeo Gracia, along with my partner, Chris Mayer, and we have a special guest for you today. We have the official contributor for the Flyers, NHL.com, a writer for the website. We have Bill Meltzer joining us on the show. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We are doing just excellent. Chris, I know you've been very excited since the Flyers beat the Boston Bruins in the first game of the round robin yesterday by a score of 4-1. It's been a very entertaining past few days. The Flyers looked really good, Chris, and I know yesterday you were very pumped.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday's game was great. It was funny because throughout the game, Amadeo was like kind of on and off with watching it, and he was like, keep me updated. I was like, all right. So I'm keeping him updated, and as soon as Boston had scored to make it 2-1, and I was like, and they got it right back. It's 3-1. But again, it was a great game. I thought everybody played good, and we will definitely get into that and give a deep dive there for that 4-1 win yesterday.
Definitely. There's a lot of big stories coming out of this game, specifically the young defenseman chipping into the offense, making some great plays. The bottom six coming in on the scoreboard, a lot of goals from the bottom six. And then Scott Laughton contributing with a late goal. It's a very great game. But, Bill, I want to get your opinions on this game. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, things that stuck out to you, things that you liked. What are your thoughts about this game?
Well, I thought that, if you scripted it out, it really could hardly have gone any better. Flyers really played the right way. I thought they played a good exhibition game, as exhibition games go, against Pittsburgh. And they took the next step in this game. Today we did the media availability with the Flyers players and several guys. Derek Grant and Tyler Pitlick and Sean Couturier all said, an intensity level, it was something in between regular season and playoffs. It was kind of like a stretch drive game in terms of the intensity level. And I think that's pretty fair. It wasn't like playoff level do or die kind of intensity, but the Flyers really never gave the Bruins much of a sniff until the last few minutes of the game, and the game was already decided by then. If you break it down period by period, the first 5 minutes of the game, you had your usual feeling out period, and that was to be expected. Boston took over the game for a while. I think they had 5 of the first 6 shots, and and something like 8 of the first 11, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like 8-2 or 8-3 at one point.
8-2, 8-3. And that first penalty kill, the Flyers had 1 penalty kill in each period. That first penalty kill, you could see, was a real stabilizer for the Flyers, and they started to turn the momentum after that. Start to finish in the game, Carter Hart was outstanding, but the Flyers really needed him to get him, till they really got into the game in the latter part of the first period and onward, and he delivered just that. The Flyers really controlled the game in the second half of the first period when they had the first power play opportunity. Claude Giroux hits the post, and then Tyler Pitlick draws a penalty on the Bruins, taking the puck to the net. A really good power move. Creates another power play, but unfortunately the Flyers didn't do much with that. But even so, they got over the hump in that first period, and it felt pretty good to get to that first intermission scoreless, just because Bruins had controlled it early. And then the second period, the Flyers dominated. Third period, they really took it to they really continued to take it to the Bruins. And by the time the Bruins started to generate some attack, it's 6-on-5 and it's late in the game and you have a 3-goal lead. And then Carter Hart just slammed the door. They had a ton of chances late, but they had the 3-goal cushion and Hart delivered. In terms of other things you can take away from the game yesterday, as you mentioned, you get 2 goals from the fourth line. That's outstanding. You're not going to get that every game. You're not going to get that most games, but getting contributions from the lower end of the lineup. Derek Grant's line was maybe a little quieter, but he won 8 of 11 faceoffs. Just a lot of the little details, right? They were able to get a forecheck going, able to get the other lines out in good shape. Couturier's line shut down the Bergeron line. And they were also out. They also were out for a goal that the Flyers scored too, because the Philippe Myers goal doesn't happen if not for a nice play by.
It was funny because that whole Bruins top line was -6, and all 3 of them had 8 shots combined, 4 from Bergeron and 2 from Marchand and Pasternak.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the elite lines in the league, and they render them a factor in the game. That's exactly. That's quite in that line's cap. And the last thing too is that if you look at the Flyers' first, second, and third goals, now obviously Myers scored the third one. That was a beautiful shot, perfect shot. But the first two goals, I mean, the defense created those. It was that a really good pinch by Sanhiem holding the puck into the point. Beautiful pass to Raffl at the doorstep, and he just flips it upstairs for the goal. And then the second one, that entry by Ivan Provorov carrying the puck through the neutral zone. Flyers get set up. Yeah. Bruins are back on their heels, and then it was a little bit of a lucky goal. Lazone was kind of screening his own goalie, and the puck maybe even deflected off of him. But I mean, that all those things happen because you get entry in the zone. The Bruins never really got that defensively, and next thing you know, the Flyers have 3 goals on the board. And then the last one by Scott Laughton, and we just had I thought Laughton had an outstanding game all around. It was nice to see him score. He scored in, obviously the overtime winner in the exhibition game, and then another one yesterday. And on that one, Halak was maybe off his angle a little bit, but it was still a really nice shot. So you take that as a 60-minute effort. Can't ask for much better than that. And Flyers have a leg up and maybe moving up seedings. Now, what those seedings will mean, we'll see. There are no easy outs in the playoffs, so. Exactly what all that means, I don't know, but you're playing the right way, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think this game exemplified what the Flyers' offense could possibly be, like going through the rest of the round robin and into the actual playoffs of the first round. Like, you have the bottom 6 chipping in for 2 goals today. Like, you get a little bit something from the first line, but they really don't produce much, the top 6. But it's like when the Flyers can go into a game, you can roll out all 4 lines, and all 4 lines have a chance to get on the score sheet. If the top 6 can get shut down, you have the bottom 6 that can chip in. If the bottom 6 can't really do much, you'll have the top forward line standing out. You got Giroux, Couturier, Konechny, Voracek, Kevin Hayes, Scott Laughton. And this game exemplified where you have young defensemen that are getting involved in a game. You got the bottom 6 chipping in. You got scoring depth throughout the lineup, and that's something that's really spectacular. And Bill, I just want to get your thoughts on just how deep this team is actually and how important that is going into the playoffs the rest of the way.
It's critical on 2 different fronts. It's critical in terms of, as you said, they're going to be games where your top line isn't going to score, or Hayes' line might not have the best game. And then in those games, if you have the teams that seem to go in deep runs are always those teams that seem to have a different hero every night. The Flyers have that capability. They're not, there aren't, and I'm not knocking these guys, but it's not, but there's no Chris Vandeveldes in the lineup anymore. They're anybody in the lineup on a given day can get you a goal. And and also, as you mentioned too, the young defensemen, just the way they get up ice onto the play. They're big and they can skate, and they can contribute. They can move the puck, and jump into the play, and they have to be respected as threats offensively. And that opens up a whole other dimension to the attack, which is why the Flyers may not have had anybody in the top 25 in scoring, although certainly a guy like Travis Konechny had an excellent offensive year. But they don't need anybody in the top 25 because they get scoring from around the lineup. The Flyers were a good solid offensive team as well as defensively. And the other thing too is that I know it's a cliche to say playing a 200-foot game, but they really do. And I remember I pointed out on Twitter yesterday that there was a play. It was in the first period. Flyers had a rush going, and there was an errant pass. The puck is lost. Now the puck is going the other way, and Scott Laughton was up at the circle at the point the puck was lost. He really busted it to get back, and now it's a 3-on-3 rush. Everybody has a man covered. Those are the kind of details that before this year would too often fall by the wayside. You play a team like the Bruins, next thing you know, it's your net. And a big part of the Flyers cutting their goals against average this year being, I think, plus 18 as a team. And I care about plus minus more as a team stat than an individual stat.
Yeah.
They went from a very poor 5-on-5 team in a lot of cases, even if some of the underlying metrics were decent. But in terms of the bottom line, a lot of times they'd have their lapses. So many things systems wise. If you think back a year ago, how many times the Flyers gave up weak side goals because a winger wouldn't pick up a D coming in, and just those killer breakdowns. It took some time to clean that up this year, but once the team really got on board with it, a lot of that went away. The the Flyers layered forecheck once they could get the puck in deep. Their F1s get in and create a lot of turnovers. If the F1 doesn't get it, the F2 is there to provide pressure. And it's, they make it very hard on other teams. I mean, Boston really hasn't gotten on track yet.
No,
they had a disjointed camp with key guys missing, and they had a pretty poor exhibition game, and that rolled over into the first round robin game. So maybe the Flyers kind of caught them at the right time, but it's also the way the Flyers are playing. And this wasn't just a game thing. It's really, I guess the most impressive thing is that the Flyers have basically seemed to have picked up kind of where they left off at the time of the pause, and that's definitely a cause for hope as a team that can, make some noise as they get into the real series.
Exactly, and I want to go on the touch of just how we have. It's nice to see some stability in net this time, because you got so many years in the past where the Flyers are just going from goaltender to goaltender to goaltender, and now you got a young guy in Carter Hart who's going to be a stud for years to come, goes into his first action in the Stanley Cup playoff games. Even though this is the round robin tournament, the stats do technically count for the playoffs. It's just how he looked so calm yesterday, and he was just making the saves. He was making them look easy. He was keeping the Flyers in the game. He was keeping them confident. And just how important is this run specifically for Carter Hart? And how important is it that the Flyers actually have a goaltender going into the playoffs?
Well, yeah, clearly that's, goaltending will make you or break you in a series and within games. So, clearly it's critical. There have been times that the Flyers have gotten good goaltending in the playoffs and other things haven't been there. I think back to that Rangers series in 2014. Steve Mason almost stole that series, and just there wasn't enough otherwise. But
that year they struggled to score.
Yeah, exactly. That was the issue there. So it hasn't always been the goalie. I get a little, I think sometimes that narrative gets easily used. There certainly have been times when it's been the goaltending though. It's really something that gives a team a lot of confidence to see. A year ago, people talk about the 8 goalies, but it was really the first half of the season was the goaltending carousel, and then Carter Hart came in and had an excellent first half season in the NHL. So that so right away you could see, and he has that it factor about him. It's not just the stats, it's not just what he did in junior hockey. It's the fact that he tracks the puck just beautifully. He's rarely caught in the wrong position, so he can make tough saves look easy. And the other thing too is that it's not that he's never had adversity. He's been pulled in some games. He's had some injuries to overcome early in his career, and he has that mentality of a goalie that's a mature player. It's so rare to see it. Most guys historically, goalies on average break into the league at about 23 or 24. So he's ahead of the curve in terms of where guys generally, get into the league and start. And most goalies tend to mature a little bit later. He's just going to get better and better and better as long as he stays healthy. So that's that could be a strength for the team for a long time to come. And certainly that's crucial to going in and always feeling you have a chance. And I'll also just real fast mention that when the Flyers, you have to have a second goal you can rely on, and particularly although his numbers weren't great to the eye. I mean, Brian Elliott came in and won a lot of games on the road this year, and he's going to figure it too. There's going to be times they're going to need Elliott during this, and while he's Carter Hart, he's not a bad second option too. If you need a goalie who's who brings experience, and at least in the past was the starter on a Blues team that got to a conference final, so he does have some playoff experience, the successful experience, within his history too.
Yeah, definitely, and it's funny too. Now that you bring up Elliott, is out of these two round robin games coming up, what game do you think he gets? I would have to think that he would probably get the Capitals, and it's not even just because it's the next game is Tampa Bay. It's the fact that Elliott played in, I believe, 2 of the 4 games versus the Capitals this year, and it was the 5-2 win and the 7-2 win, both on the road. So he played really good versus the Caps this year, and he's proven that he can beat them. So what game do you think that Elliott will get there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Carter had that game to it was early in the season. The Flyers lost that one by shootout.
Yeah, the 2-1. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean the Caps hadn't been held under 3 goals since I think the second or third game of the season, and Carter held him to a single goal in regulation overtime, and he was under siege for a lot of that game. So you could go, you could go with either goalie for that one.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking maybe Elliott for the Tampa Bay game.
Really?
Yeah. Although even there, I mean, Carter had the one loss to Tampa Bay and Philly was a 1-0 game, and that was just
exactly. A fluky goal by Maroon. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you could really take it either which way. Elliott did have the game there that I mean, he had the benefit of a lot of goal support in those games too. It was just I mean, those games, I think any goalie, if he played decently, the Flyers would have probably won both of those games.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I just think that with the way that Hart is, the game that Hart is coming off of, I think he's earned another start here. And then the last game, you may be playing for the number 1 seed if you can beat the Caps. Probably be playing for the number 1 seed. You win all 3, you'll get it. But I would think that if it were my choosing, I would go with Hart next game and then Elliott for the third.
Yeah, and it's funny because like it's definitely it's not a bad choice at all. But the thing is, it's just like the one thing I always thought is with the way that Tampa Bay plays, it's like I don't know. I mean, I would. It's funny because like now that you say that, now I think about it, like I would honestly would rather have Elliott in that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's you could make the case either way.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's easy to say now and it's easy to second guess later, right? It's I mean, either goalie is capable of winning, and Tampa Bay is capable of beating any goalie, really. So it's it's just I guess just a little bit of a feeling thing. But I just think that Hart's earned another star. Then you evaluate after that.
Yeah, definitely. And I was having the same mindset too, honestly. I was thinking about after this game, Hart played so well, stopped 34 out of 35 shots, and he had a great game. And you have, until Thursday, so you got 3 days off between here from Sunday to Thursday.
Yeah.
And you start Brian Elliott. If you started him against Washington, then the next game wouldn't be till Saturday. So that's technically like a 5-day off span for Carter Hart. Honestly, I wouldn't want to have that for him. I would like him to get the next game, and then you can start Elliott against Tampa Bay. Just personally for me, I wouldn't want Hart to have that long set off for that many days off. But it's up to the coach at this point when either Elliott goes Thursday, whether Hart goes Saturday, or flip-flop them either or. But it's going to be interesting because Alain Vigneault does want Brian Elliott to get one game in this round robin to keep him fresh. And hey, if he gets Thursday, if he gets Saturday, I feel like I'll be confident either way. And like you said, Bill, Brian Elliott has been phenomenal this year. Even though the numbers don't show it, he's been very outstanding. And one thing I want to touch on from the game against Boston, like going back to the young defensemen specifically in this game, and Chris, just like going throughout this game too, like guys like Travis Sanhiem, Ivan Provorov, and Phil Myers are defensemen that stood out from this game. And just the play that Sanhiem made on that Raffl goal, pinching into the play, making sure the puck doesn't go out of the Boston zone and making that phenomenal pass to Raffl. And just what Provorov did to set up the Nate Thompson goal, and what Phil Myers did, just an absolute snipe for the third goal in response. Just Chris, like what did you see from the young defensemen from this game? Like what did they showcase?
I thought everybody played good, and that honestly went down from Hag. I thought Hag was solid the whole game, and I still consider him a young D-man. As for Myers, I thought he was terrific. I thought everybody was good in their own end. I thought penalty kill, everybody played solid. I didn't really think there was anything that was stand out from them by any of the young guys. I think that was more just all in all, everybody kind of stood out. It wasn't like one guy did this. I think honestly the best guy that stood out was probably Carter Hart. But as for the young defense, I thought Sanhiem had a really good game offensively. I thought he was moving the puck well out of the zone. Him and Myers have really started and gotten better at really breaking that puck out. It seemed like some nights, like, and it was weird because everybody like criticized them because they maybe took a little too long. I saw that maybe for one game, and that was really it. I didn't see that for much. But that goes back to the regular season. But even still, it's like I think the way that they moved the puck out of their own zone was good. I honestly thought that just the tempo of them with when they started that Pittsburgh game, when they just I like in that first period versus Pittsburgh, I think that was one of their best things. It was like they were so good at moving the puck quick, and they continue that today. And then Bill, as you said, they kind of struggled on those first 10 minutes, but then they won the rest of the 10 minutes there. And one thing I'm going to go back to that too is to start that period, they had the minute 8 seconds of the power play time. Couldn't get much going, but I think that was like and it was Bill, that penalty kill that you said that really gave them momentum to finish off and go to the last 10, and then to start that period, they had that power play where they generated a couple chances, and then they really just started to working from there. And then that was when they got that goal from Raffl, and then they just exploded there in the second period with the 3 goals. But even still, I thought the defense was good, and I thought that second period was really the huge turning point for the game, because I think what they did the best was they moved the puck quick out of their own zone, and then they were just able to go. And they were forechecking, they were physical. I think the biggest thing off that Raffl goal was just the way that they kept the puck in the zone for almost a minute and a half, 2 minutes, just before they scored, because they were just cycling, moving the puck, and then they were physical on the play. And then they ended up getting the really nice goal there from Raffl. But again, it was all in all a good effort. And I thought the defense, and to your point, the young defense, I thought they moved the puck extremely well throughout the whole game. I think that was one of the biggest reasons why they were able to put up 4, and then also generate chances off the rush like they did, like that Laughton 2-on-1, and so on. And then as for the Myers 2-on-1, it was kind of a turnover, but even still, like again, it was just amazing to see, because it started in the exhibition game and they followed it up today, and it was definitely good to see for them to continue that, and just like along the stretch going into to these other round robin games.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the defensemen that I want to bring up in Ivan Provorov, the way he's been playing, just another casual 25 plus minutes of ice action in this game. I don't know what it is with Provorov. I don't know if it's the hairstyle. I don't know if it's the beard, but he's just casually throwing out there 25 minutes. And Bill, I want to get your thoughts on this. Like, what has a guy like Matt Niskanen brought to the table to help improve Ivan Provorov this entire season and going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to actually bring up Niskanen if you guys didn't. He's such a stabilizing force on the blue line. He's a perfect partner for Provorov. Just reads off him beautifully. If Provorov is up on the play, Niskanen always is back. They make the D-to-D pass just seamlessly. Provorov Provorov is outstanding, on both ends of the ice as well. But Niskanen, nobody defends a 2-on-1 better than Niskanen. He's just like clockwork. One-on-one, he's airtight. He knows when to block a shot. He knows when to be physical. He's always in the right position. And Provorov is a very smart hockey player, so they read off each other really well. Mm-hmm. The other thing that Niskanen brings is that, and it's something that can be a factor when you have a young group, is sometimes panic can set in on a bench if things aren't going your way. And it's not what Niskanen says; it's more of a tone. Guys listen when he has something to say. But if you need a guy who steps up and in a variety of different situations, he's another all situations guy. It's crucial in the penalty kill. He was one of the guys who was absolutely airtight on the PK yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's huge. He lets Provorov do his thing because Provorov doesn't have to worry about what his partner is doing. And that's enabled him to really spread his wings and grow as a player into that number one defenseman that the Flyers have always said he would be, and that's something where they're always signs of it, right? Yeah. And 2 years ago, he showed that for a pretty prolonged stretch. Took a step back last year, and now he's back on that track and has had a better year really than he had even in the second year. So it's been huge. They have another year with Niskanen. We'll see beyond that, but he's a guy who, when he's gone, whether that's a year from now or 2 years from now or whatever, his impact will still be felt in terms of how other players grew while he was there. Also to a lesser extent on the bottom end of the blue line, Justin Braun has brought the same thing too.
Oh, definitely. Justin Braun has been a nice addition to the top 6, and he's helped in being paired with a guy like Robert Haig. I feel like Justin Braun being paired with Haig throughout majority of the season has improved Haig's game as well. And Haig, I feel like when you're a stay-at-home defenseman, when your name is not brought up that much, you were doing your job every single night. You were doing the good things. And I think Haig has had much benefit from Justin Braun being on his side, because Justin Braun is kind of the same defenseman. He's that stay-at-home guy, that defensive defenseman. When his name's not brought up during the game, he's doing his job, and I feel like that's what Hague has benefited much from Justin Braun. And the other young guys, Phil Myers, Travis Sanhiem chipping into the offense. I want to get your thoughts on just Phil Myers jumping in on that 2-on-1 and just nothing but twine for that goal. And that response, basically 8 seconds after Boston made it 2-1, just the confidence to get up there, get into the 2-on-1, and just absolutely snipe the puck. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Just like that shows confidence right there. That shows Phil Myers on what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, Myers has always had just that unusual athleticism for a guy his height. And then it was a process for him to learn to harness it and pick his spots. In junior hockey, he was just bigger and stronger than everybody else. And, you know, it's definitely been a process. You know, it's been at the NHL level. It was at the American League level with Scott Gordon and Kerry Huffman and Kjell Samuelsson, but mostly it comes from, you know, Phil himself and just learning, studying video, learning what he can and can't do and when he can do it. And, you know, he's always had the ranginess. He's always had the ability to jump in. He would have a tendency, I think, when he was younger to maybe psych himself out a little bit and take himself out of plays. You know, he had, as you often see with young defensemen, if a mistake happened, it would snowball on him sometimes for the next several shifts. It's a maturity process, and you're seeing him blossom as a player. Remember, he started this season with the Phantoms. He was a healthy scratch on occasion early this season, and then really it started to click in as the Flyers got into December, January, and from January onward. You know, I don't know that he's going to be a huge, you know, scorer, but he's a guy who can contribute offensively. He's always had a heavy shot. Really, it's been more that, you know, sometimes it takes him a little too long to get rid of the puck. So he get blocked quite a bit. Mm-hmm. He's learning, you know, he's learning how fast you have to get rid of the puck up here. So he's still learning. He's still getting better, but he's already really good. They're slotted perfectly as a second pairing behind Provorov and Niskanen, and it really enables them to thrive and thrive to the extent that if they do end up in matchups against top lines, the Flyers aren't worried about having to get them off the ice. They can handle those responsibilities. And those guys, their confidence level has really blossomed. They work together, you know, they've worked together a long time now. They were the top pairing for the Phantoms, and now they're the second pairing for the Flyers. And I mean, it's the real deal. Both of those guys. You know, Travis had a little further to go in terms of he was an offensive defenseman, a hyper offensive defenseman when he was with Calgary, the Calgary Hitmen in junior hockey. And that was partially because he played for a team where they didn't have very good forwards. You know, they had their attack came from the back end. And it was Travis Sanhiem and it was Jake Bean. And if those two guys weren't generating the offense from the back end, a lot of times Calgary wouldn't score. So, you know, he had a lot of junior hockey habits coming into the pros. And then you could see a process with Travis without the puck. You know, like there were a lot of times where his gaps had to be improved a lot. He'd leave too much space and guys would beat him. And it was learning how to use his speed, learning how to be assertive. When Travis is assertive, you know, he's an outstanding all-around defenseman. He has that, of course, the offensive element in his game as well. That's still there. I think he can even continue to get better in that way. Yesterday, the Flyers had a rush going where Travis turned the puck over. He made a bad lateral pass, and he was caught and whatever. And then, you know, it's good back checking kind of bailed him out. And in the past, a mistake like that would happen, and you know, it might snowball to another shift. Maybe back in early in his career, he might have sat on the bench for a while. Okay, it happened. Puck was turned over. No harm done. Next shift, he pressured up in the neutral zone and had support around him, forced an icing. And then his shift after that, or two shifts after that, had the keep and the assist for the goal. And that's the kind of thing those guys were doing from January onward on a pretty consistent basis. So that is a second pairing, is a pretty dynamic pairing, and I think they're just getting better and better.
Yeah, and just now looking forward into the playoffs. I want to touch on like the coaching staff a little bit and like how they better prep the mentality of this team, because you can tell from the players' press conferences they're better equipped. They have a great mentality going into each game. So like, what are your thoughts on Alain Vigneault and the rest of the coaching staff on how like they're just bonding with the players, how they're getting them mentally ready for each game, and how they're sticking to the system?
Yeah, I mean, we can start with AV. You're not a 5-time Jack Adams Trophy finalist because you don't know how to coach. You know, he is an elite coach. He's won it once. You know, you can make a case for any of the finalists this year. Maybe a little bit biased. I would like to see Alain win it this year, but you know, he certainly, you know, it's not a slight if he doesn't. But you know, he's an elite coach in the league. He is demanding, but he's fair. And the things that I like about Vigneault, you know, because you can win with you can win with different systems. I do like the Flyers system. You know, I think it's a well constructed system. I like the breakouts. I like the forecheck. You know, I like the way that the special team side has come around this year. You can see the experience in the staff. You have 3 coaches on there who've been head coaches in the NHL. That certainly shows. You know, Mike Yeo is also a really detail-oriented guy. Vigneault doesn't feel threatened by input from the other coaches. They really work well as a cohesive unit. Mm-hmm. If you look at AV's career, every place he's been, whether it's been in Montreal with Dave King, whether it's been the Rangers, he had Lindy Ruff there, or whether it was, you know, Rick Bowness in Vancouver. He's always had other guys on his staff who've been head coaches. Mm-hmm. And
some are still head coaches today too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something where, you know, he knows what he's doing, and players respect him. Today, I mean, he's not afraid to challenge players, but he doesn't do it in a way where it feels like a threatening or off-putting thing, which is, let's be honest, you know, it's really tough to be just a hard ass all the time. He always makes clear that it's nothing personal, and that you know, if you perform, that's all he's looking to see. So yeah. You know, I remember earlier this year that he called out Jake, and he called out Hayes, and he called out JVR, and he called out JVR again today. He said he thought JVR looked good in camp. He needs more than he's seen in the 2 games so far. He'll always be pushing players, so it's, you know, that's a positive thing. There's always room to improve, and it's never you know, it's always all about the hockey. It's never about anything personal. And if a guy is going, he'll play. You know, and that's what you want to see in a coach. The other thing I think Vigneault was really, really good at is he reads the game. He comes in with his game plan. You know, the lines are what they are, but he's really good at reading how a game is going. So if a guy is going particularly well, you know, he might be a 4th line guy. He'll play several more minutes that night. You know, if a guy isn't going as well, JVR's not having a good game, he'll move him down. But next game he'll probably be back up again. You know, it's game to game, situation to situation. And the other thing too that you can see buy-in to the system, and it's something that you know, something I actually talked to AV about during the pause. If you look at the Flyers as a team this year, their average shift time, you know, per player per shift is down about 3 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you multiply that over a game, and that means you're able to roll your lines better, right? You guys don't get tired in third periods of games, and you're less likely to get caught on those end of shift situations that they can often be dangerous. Come back and end up in your net, and he got the team to buy into it, you know. And what guys saw is that maybe your shifts are shorter, but you're skating the same number of shifts, so you're out there just as often. And you know, it hasn't been a buy-in issue at all. And all these little details, you know, he got the entire buy-in. So
yeah, and definitely, like, and one thing I wanted to ask too is, speaking of how they talk about everything with the home ice advantage not really being home ice advantage, because obviously there's no fans, it's kind of just like a different jersey. But one thing is how much do you think the last change can help the Flyers if they were to get the high seed here in this round robin?
It certainly helps, you know. Yeah. you get to dictate the matchups, a little bit better. Just with the way the rules have changed. For example, it used to be it was always visiting. Besides the last change, it was always the visiting center had to put a stick on the ice first. Now it's whatever team's in the defensive zone, their center has to put the stick down first. So, obviously after an icing or whatever, you can't change. So, it's a little less of a factor than it used to be, but it still helps. But I think, I think in the grand scheme of things, being in the bubble kind of also further reduces whatever quirks of your home rink or whatever it may be. But but certainly being able to get the matchups you want to start shifts can make a difference for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I never really thought of it as something that was major, but if we're talking little details, it could be something that could end up helping the Flyers out, maybe get a goal when they need it, or help them, just finish off a period or something like that, because it's little things like that can definitely spark a team to pick up some wins and continue that streak.
Definitely. And also being the number one face-off team in the NHL too. So you're starting that shift and have a very good chance of getting the instant puck possession too. That certainly helps.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I wanted to go off about yesterday's game too was just the way that it was that like the Flyers were carrying the pace in the second and third, but also the shots. Because Boston, it took them until 10:21 of the third to get their first shot. And the shots after the first were 12-5 in favor of the Bruins. Then it was 20-17 in favor of Boston after the second, and then the third was 35-29 Bruins. But and then, as I said, in the last 10 minutes, they only had the one shot, so they were at 21 there. But then when they pulled the goalie with 4 minutes left, I think they must have had maybe 8 to 10 chances there. And then, as you said earlier, that Hart stopped all of them. But again, like that's something too. Is like, Bill, I just wanted to get like your thoughts on this. Like, how do you think, with the way that the Flyers kind of played in an exhibition game where I think they kind of let up a lot of chances where they didn't shoot as much, and compared to yesterday, they had a lot of chances and they were shooting the puck better. So how do you think that kind of changed as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it there was a little bit of evolution going on. The ice hasn't really been very good, and actually, I mentioned a little bit after yesterday's game. So it behooves you to shoot. If you're, with bad ice, you're more likely for a pass to hop over somebody's stick or whatever the case might be. In the first period, if you remember, Claude Giroux had a 2-on-1.
And Raffl.
With Raffl, and he had a good look at the net. I would have liked to have seen him shoot there. He elected to pass.
Same here.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gonna be, and obviously he's an elite playmaker. So a lot of times that'll still end up in the net. But I mean, as you're going along, you're reading these. I would like to see them. I'd like to see them have a shooting mentality. It's. I just think that it bodes well. A lot of times, particularly early on, when teams are still totally getting their passing and their skating back up to where their A game level is, and the skating is pretty good actually already. But the passing can still be tightened up. I'd like to see them shoot when they can.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I wanted to bring up too is that I don't know if you remember this, you probably do. That face-off that the Flyers had where Couturier got kicked out and they put Giroux in, and Giroux had flipped his stick to take it like he was left-handed, and he won it back. And like that was just insane.
Yeah, if you remember Couturier, I mean, he had a shoulder injury he was nursing. So he was doing the same thing. He was having to flip the stick and with limited success. But yeah, that's I mean, Giroux is just one of the best. I mean, Giroux
he's a freak in nature at those face-offs.
No question. And it also, it's also a matter of experience too. You know how to cheat, and you know that after a certain point, you get away with more too. That's he's one of the best. He's one of the best guys in the league at semi-legally cheating with his feet. But it's like a veteran's privilege in the league, and even without it, even on an even up basis, he has such quick hands and knows how to tie a guy up so somebody come in and win it if he can't win it cleanly. So that's definitely is a big benefit. And yes, I mean that's something he does really, really well, and I think sometimes escapes notice.
Yeah, definitely. Claude Giroux, just a beast at those face-offs. And the one thing I want to get to at the for the last thing about this game is that the whole situation going on with Michal Raffl right now. So we heard that from today's press conferences that he might miss some time. So Bill, like, is there any full details that you can give about Michal Raffl, or is it like limited at this point to where the coaches really couldn't say anything?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, because of the it's the Players Association and the NHL. I mean, it's to me, truthfully, a little silly. It's not like you got COVID with 6 minutes left in the third period. Everybody saw it was an injury. Everybody saw it was a lower body, and body injury. You can't even. You're not even allowed to give a timetable. So but it just from the experience of watching similar kind of plays to that, and it's just a guesstimate. It's usually about a 4-week kind of injury where he would be back in about a month, and that's just that it just based on having seen similar plays to that. That's kind of what it looked like. Not necessarily a playoff ending thing for him, but he'll be missing for a while, and it'll give Joel Farabee a chance to step in. And actually, AV said kind of intriguingly that he might have some other lineup changes just to take a look at things on for Thursday too. And we'll see. Tomorrow's an off day, so we won't see tomorrow, but they'll probably go into Thursday's game with whatever the combos are on Wednesday, so that'll be something to look for.
Yeah, and going off of that, you think there's any way that they can maybe put Farabee on that third line and maybe slot down a guy like Pitlick or Aubé-Kubel on that fourth line?
They may, yeah. I mean, because Yo had said the other day that, and it's to be expected. Farabee's never been a guy who's played on fourth lines in his life.
No.
So he's learning a little bit about playing in that spot in the lineup. I think that's one of the things that figured into Michal Raffl starting. That certainly proved to be the right button to push for that game. But yeah, I think you could see other people moved around. I think they want to keep Scott Laughton up on Hayes' line. That trio.
I think that. Yeah, I agree. I think that line's had a lot of chemistry.
Oh, no question. So I mean, you could see Farabee. The problem is that Farabee's more comfortable on the left than on the right, although he would try. So JVR only plays the left really. So I don't know how you would put him in the third and what you would do with JVR in that situation, but. Yeah, I mean that certainly is an option. Pitlick can play third or fourth line; he's comfortable either place. It does give you some different things you can look at. They might even, who knows? I mean, early in camp they had Laughton back at center, but again, I don't think they want to break up that second line right now. So, we'll see what they have in store on Wednesday. I'm really that's the number one thing I'm looking to see actually how the third line combo and fourth line obviously is going to look for the next practice, because again that's probably what they're going to take into the game.
Yeah, and again I can't see them switching up that first and second line. It's just been too good, and I guess you could say a live update here. The Hurricanes have taken game 2, final score 4-1, so they now have a 2-0 lead over the Rangers in a best of 5 here. So it's going to be definitely a tough hill to climb here for the Rangers.
Yeah, winning 3 in a row against the team, it's pretty tough, particularly when you've had a long layoff like that. I'm not Henrik Lundqvist. I'm not saying if Shesterkin were there, it would have been the difference, but it's not vintage Henrik Lundqvist. But I also think Carolina is just a deeper hockey team. I mean, I personally think that Carolina has more depth. Yeah, I do too. I think position for position, they're a deeper team. Obviously, Zibanejad just went nuts in the second half of the season, which had a lot to do, obviously, with Panarin. And Panarin is one of the very, very best in the game. But I think in terms of depth, the Rangers are not as deep as they'll probably be in a couple of years. I don't think they're ready to win yet. I think Carolina's a really good team, and I don't think it's going to go 4. I think that they're going to get swept, but we'll see. But I don't see the Rangers winning the series either if they do win the next one.
Yeah, and Bill, I wanted to get your thoughts on just the qualifying rounds in general. Like, what have your thoughts been on these first few days of playing playoff hockey at this point? What are your thoughts on the different games going on? What are your thoughts on the series and teams that won so far? Yeah, you don't often see a winning goal with 0.1 on the clock. That was really cool. That was crazy. It was nuts. I mean, that was just one for the ages. I think that they've been good games. They've been intense games.
You know,
Yeah.
I think some of them are truthfully a little more intense than the Flyers game was. I thought I thought Toronto's loss was an interesting one. I'm really not surprised. I don't think Toronto's a team that's built to go very far in the playoffs.
I don't either.
You know, and obviously there'll be, if they do go out in the qualifying round, the qualifying teams do have the potential, the consolation prize of the first overall pick of the draft, but the players don't think that way. Fans think that way, and management may have it in the back of their head. It might not be the worst thing in the world, but the players never think that way. Toronto. Toronto's such an interesting team to me because they have so much money and so much invested tied into their forward lineup. When it was the big game changers when they got Tavares, because then Tavares, they had to re-sign Marner and they had to re-sign Matthews. Nylander got a big contract, and then Kapanen really kind of came on, and they had to sign him to a bigger deal than I think they were anticipating. So I think they're really thin still on the back end. And to me, the teams that are a real threat in the playoffs are the teams that don't have to outscore their mistakes. They're the teams that can win 2-1, 1-0 on the rare occasion if you have to. And I don't think they're built to be a team like Columbus. So I would not be surprised if Columbus moves on in that series. And Columbus is a team that scares me now that they're healthy. They're a team that if I'm looking from a Flyers point of view, even though the Flyers handled them this regular season, the Flyers also caught them at the right times. That'd be a really, really tough series. So that's one that I'm watching with interest. Seeing Chicago win the first game in that series was, a little bit of a surprise. But sometimes the team is playing with house money comes in loose, and you never know what can happen. And in a short series, it can really favor an underdog team because it's almost
especially
like
Montreal too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Montreal had nothing to lose, and Montreal surprised me because I thought they looked terrible in their.
They were horrible. That was Pittsburgh's game to lose, and they lost it.
Yeah, exactly, and then it can get into a team's head a little bit. It's like being it's like in a best of 7 series, it's like the Penguins already have 2 losses because it's because they're gonna have to win 3 of the next 4, and they can do it. They're capable of it. The Penguins really did not look very good for a large part of the season, though.
Yeah.
And for the Penguins to have to win 3 out of 4, they can do it. But I would certainly say that's not a guarantee. I'm still not really sold on Montreal. So if it was a little better team than Montreal, I would say the Penguins are in major trouble, even down 1 here. I think Pittsburgh can. If I had to pick one team or the other, I still think Pittsburgh will pull through it. If it were to work out that it's Flyers-Pittsburgh, though, I think the Flyers could beat them.
How many games?
Just going into the Pittsburgh series, I heard that today they're going back with Matt Murray and net. I know the whole situation with Pittsburgh this year has been their goaltending. Is it Jarry? Is it Murray? Is it one of the two? Because they really can't decide who wants to be the starter. And it looks like they're going with Murray today. So, what are your thoughts on that, Bill? What if Murray has he lets in a couple bad goals tonight? Do you think they go Jarry the next game, or do you think they roll with Murray the entire way? Because the entire, Pittsburgh, they're, confused why Murray is starting rather than Jarry because they favored Jarry more this year. It's been a really confusing state with the goaltending process in Pittsburgh this year, so I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's one of the big issues, too. They have, the Penguins are like a team that, obviously they won the 2 cups. They're a veteran team. They still have several players from that nucleus: Crosby, Malkin, Letang. But and they went out this year, and one of the things that truthfully galls me is that they expended a first-round pick to get Zucker, but it was just for that it was lottery protected, figuring Pittsburgh's going to face the Flyers in the first round as a 2-3 matchup. It's not They're not going to be a lottery team. Now all of a sudden, because of the all of a sudden they could end up having the first pick of the draft, and their first round pick that they trade to get Zucker rolls back to 2021. So that's a little bit galling, but but they trade first round picks every year. The Bills got to come due for it, right? So
that just seems like a common phase with Jim Rutherford as their
so
GM.
aggravating. It's like, oh my god.
It's like as Flyers fans here, biased, like you don't want Pittsburgh to succeed, but it's just like you're trading so many assets, first round
No.
picks year after year. I understand you have the team to win the cup, but the defense is like when you sign Jack Johnson to a long term contract, I don't think that's good enough.
No, and the way he plays to get $5 million a year is atrocious.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that one.
And just like going through the other series, so we have Winnipeg and Calgary playing tonight. They're just getting underway. They're halfway through the first period. Again, Calgary winning that first game to where I feel like for Winnipeg, they don't have that, even though they have guys like Scheifele, Wheeler, Line, and all those. I feel like their offense just can't find a way to get things going. And I feel like they rely too much on Hellebuck to win the games. And their defense isn't as strong as it used to be. So who do you favor more in that series? Do you favor Calgary or do you favor Winnipeg?
Going in, I had Winnipeg as one of my big sleeper teams because I really love a lot of players on that team still. Obviously, there's no Big Buff anymore. That's a huge loss, and Trouba's gone as well. So yes, the defense is not what it was before. I mean, Hellebuck will win the Vezina of this year, deserves to, in my estimation. There have been times where they over rely on him too, but I really like a lot of forwards on the team. Now, what happened with Scheifele is really unfortunate, and that definitely throws a big wrench in the works for Winnipeg. And Scheifele's ability to step up was one of the reasons why I had them winning the series going in. Now I'm kind of swinging the other way on that series, truthfully, even though it's just one game in a best of 5, and there's still. I mean, I think that's a series that is far from over. But yeah, I don't see Winnipeg getting through. But if they do, I think it will have to be Hellebuck that largely pulls them through it.
And it's funny because like I feel like that's been like their main thing all season. He's been the one that's really been keeping them in some games. And then as you said, they lose Bufflin, Trouba, and then they lost Myers as well. So that's three guys back there. And I didn't even really think their defense was that bad for losing those 3 guys. I think they were still pretty solid. Obviously, it's definitely it's a huge loss. But one thing I want to ask is that Tkachuk hit on Scheifele. Is there any way you think that's intentional or no?
I didn't think it was intentional. I thought it was more reckless than intent. That one. In watching Lauzon's hit on Raffl again, there was no intent there whatsoever. I don't even think it was a slew foot. In rewatching it, this one was not a good hit. A kind of a reckless hit. And I didn't, you never want to see that, but I don't think there was intent to injure on it. I didn't get that vibe off of it.
Yeah, and one thing, and the thing is like I agree. I just think that right there, to me, that's just a shitty hockey play that happens, and it's not something you want to see. And it's like, and it sucks for Winnipeg because he's obviously one of their best players, and then with them losing Line and then also Appleton, he was not at skate yesterday either. So that's 3 guys right there in their lineup, and 2 of them being, 2 of their key pieces. With Line, he provides most of the goal scoring for them, and along with Scheifele. One thing is too is that losing Scheifele kills them on the power play because he's one of the biggest reasons why they can even get in the zone regardless. So it's going to be tough for Winnipeg, and I would not be surprised if there's a couple fights in the start of that game today.
Yeah, I'd agree for sure.
And Bill, one more question before we let you go here. So, do you have any predictions for the games that happen tonight? Like, which game are you looking most forward to? Any of the round robin games or any of the games that are later tonight?
Yeah, not to cop out on it. The one thing I've learned about hockey is the only predictable thing is it's unpredictable. So, I never do it. I never, not to cop out on it, but it's you almost get a feel for how the series, any series always takes on a personality to it, and as it goes along, things become more predictable as you go. But if we were to say 10 minutes into the game or whatever, like, okay, what's your vibe on it? I might start to have a read. Otherwise it's just a guess. So I think that I tend to avoid that.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand your way on the predictions right there. Chris has had a terrible year with predictions.
I am so bad at predictions, Bill. It's not even funny. Like
going to the beginning of the year.
Like I have, I don't. You definitely remember this. It was the Western Canadian road trip in the beginning of the season. I had predicted them to go like 2-0-1 with a couple goals from some guys. I got everything wrong. They lost all 3 games. Terrible. And since then, and that same month, they had Pittsburgh and the Islanders at the end of it. And I said, all right, I think they're going to split. I think that they would lose the Islanders and beat Pittsburgh. Well, they ended up getting smoked by both teams. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not doing predictions anymore. I'm done.
And then you had the game in the beginning of the year when you predicted the Flyers would beat Pittsburgh. Then they got crushed 7-2.
Yeah. And that was the game I was just talking about. That game there where they ended up getting smoked by both teams because they played the Islanders the exact same weekend.
Yeah. So I could definitely understand that front right there on the predictions. But Bill, thank you for joining us here on the Fired Up podcast. And for people that are listening to this podcast, where can they go to follow you on social media?
On social media, I'm on Twitter at Bill Meltzer. You can see my writing basically every day on flyers.nhl.com. I'm also the Flyers Alumni Association's content manager. So if you go to @Flyers Alumni at Twitter or to flyersalumni.org, our materials are there.
Yeah, so thank you once again, Bill, for joining us on the show. And for people, go follow him on the social media at Bill Meltzer on Twitter. And for us at the Fired Up Podcast, go follow us on our different social media platforms at Fired Up Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube page as well, Fired Up Podcast. So for this episode of the Fired Up Podcast, thank you, Bill, for joining us. I'm your host, Amadeo Gracia. He is Chris Mayer, and we will see you next time.